Oh, okay. All right, guys. So we've got two games going on today, but only the game against the Indians is going to be on TV. So if you're not watching on that, let me see. I should probably mute the other thing. And we're gonna leave it live. Doesn't matter. Um, but the Reds got split squad action going today, which actually, while I'm thinking about it now, I should probably bring that up on the second computer so I can at least follow the box scores. Um, oh no, we've got to mute that one. That's way too loud. That one's too loud too. We've got lots of minor league guys in the games today because we've got split squad action, so the rosters are going to be small as it is. Now, what's interesting is all of these guys that are in, well, non-pitchers at least, well, even the pitchers, if they're not in big league camp, they showed up early to Arizona this year because pitchers and catchers, let me rephrase it, starting pitchers and catchers aren't even supposed to be, or they're not required to be in minor league camp until February 28th this year, and then position players and relievers show up a couple days after that. So anybody that's not on the actual roster or is a non-roster invitee to spring training actually showed up early, and they're being rewarded by getting a dress, and maybe they'll get some action in the big league games today. So I tweeted out earlier who those guys were going to be. So let me go through here and I can read this again. I mean, there was a lot of guys, so I don't have them memorized at this point. Scrolling here. Okay, so in the game that's on Fox Sports Ohio, the minor league players include Tyler Stevenson and Tony Sanchez behind the plate. Montrell Marshall, he'll probably play first base if he gets into the game. Juan Martinez, another corner infielder guy, third base, first base. Carlos Rivero, very good defensive shortstop. Narciso Crook, who got to play yesterday, outfielder. Miles Gordon, Andy Segilio, and Edwin Yan. Now, Edwin Yan is, he's going to be 19 years old this year. I mean, he's a big kid. He's like, I think he's 6'7". Kind of a skinny guy right now. Still plenty of room to fill out, but there's a lot of power potential in his bat. Didn't show too much of it last year in Arizona, but when you watch him take batting practice, you can definitely see the power that's there. Just kind of has to put the skills to use a little bit better. But again, he's still a teenager and he's playing in the States, so clearly the Reds like him. Now in the other split squad game against Chicago, now this one's on the road. You've got Cassidy Brown and Mark Hollisvari behind the plate. Infielders Miguel Hernandez, Mitch Ney, Leandro Santana, Blake Traha. Interesting to see Miguel Hernandez there. He was the second biggest international free agent signing that the Reds made in 2015 out of Venezuela. They started him last year in the Dominican Summer League, but he performed well there, and they brought him up to Arizona about a month into that season, and he finished out very well there too. Really good defensive shortstop, super young, just going to be 19 this year. Mitch Ney is another interesting guy. They picked him up this offseason. He was a former top prospect who he's had some, frankly, he's just had some bad luck. He got injured and then had a staph infection, and it pretty much cost him a lot of time on the field. And then when he came back, he wasn't 100% last year, and he really struggled. But before he got hurt and had the staph infection, there was a lot of talent there. There were some guys that liked him. New to the system, so a lot of people maybe not have heard of him yet. But he's definitely a guy I'd keep an eye on, kind of if you're looking for somebody kind of deep and off the radar to follow this year. Mitch Ney's probably one of those guys. And then in the outfield, they've got Stuart Fairchild and Randy Ventura listed. They also have Wendolyn Bautista listed as an outfielder. Well, he was listed with the outfielders on the press release, but listed as an infielder with the outfielders. Now, Wendolyn Bautista is actually a pitcher, so there's a chance he was just listed in the wrong part, and he should have been listed with the pitchers. There's also a chance that they just made a typo, and they meant to put Mariel Bautista, who is an outfielder, and so there's a chance that happened. I don't know which one is which. If one of the two gets into a game, we'll find out. But that was an interesting one as far as the travel roster against the White Sox goes. And Homer Bailey just struck out Francisco Lindor to start off the game on on Fox Sports Ohio, so that's always good. Um, let's see here. Okay, so when I did this on Friday, I broadcast probably the first half of the game, and at that point, um, Jose Siri hadn't been in the game for very long, hadn't played much. Later in the game, he ran into the center field wall, hurt his thumb, ended up leaving the game. Turns out he has a little bit of ligament damage in his thumb. It's his glove hand, his left thumb. And it's going to be stabilized for a couple of weeks. They didn't probably put an exact timetable on anything. So, I don't know. That's going to be... that. Hopefully it doesn't cost him much time. Minor league games don't start until, I think, April. It's April 4th or 5th. I'm not sure off the top of my head. But it's one of those 2 days. So, there's still time for him to, get rest and then, be ready for the start of the minor league season. Because there wasn't really much of a chance that he was going to actually play. Or, I mean, he wasn't really playing for a job on the big league roster. That just... That wasn't going to happen. He's got no time above a low A at this point, so not really expecting him to do too much as far as that goes. But missing time in the beginning of the season that would suck. He's going to be entering his age 22 season, and he's still going to be an A-ball. Now, I mean, he's got all the tools in the world that you want to see, but you want to see him on the field getting, 125, 130 starts this season. So, I don't know. Hopefully, it's not something that's going to keep him out for too long. 2 to 3 weeks, he can probably still be ready to start the regular season. If it's going to be 3, 4, 5 weeks, he probably won't be. Hopefully, it's a little bit more of the latter, but we'll have to see how that goes. Okay, so on my stream here, because I'm doubling up, I'm watching my stream and I'm actually watching it on YouTube. I'm having some buffering issues. Is anybody else having any problems with the stream staying up, or is that just on my end for whatever reason? I guess we'll find out here in a minute. Let's see. Yeah, Ben asked in the chat, Taylor Trammell in center field to start 2018 if Siri isn't ready for opening day. Yeah, I'd imagine so. But at the same time, though, I'm assuming that we're talking about Daytona here. And I would assume that TJ Friedel is probably going to be back in Daytona this season, too, at least to start the year. So there's a chance that he could play center field and Trammell could stay in left. But I think that one of the two is going to start there if Siri's not ready. So they may even split time if Siri's not ready. Kind of like what they did in Dayton at the beginning of last year. The three kind of rotated around center field before they decided to go with Siri full-time in center. So, yeah, thanks, Philip. Philip loves to really get on me about his Mac and how awesome it is because he knows that I'm so anti-Apple products. But he said it's working fine on his Mac. So that's good. It's not working great on my computer, but that's got more to do with probably bandwidth restrictions going on than the actual maker of the computer. Gross. Let's see here. What do we got? Okay, let me pull up I actually never got around to pulling up the box scores for both of the games, so let me do that real quick on my computer back here behind this one. I want the White Sox game up because that's not the one that I'm able to watch right now. Okay, so in the White Sox game, looks like nothing going so far. Well, Phil Gosselin walked in his first plate appearance. I mean, I feel bad because I feel like I really got on Phil Gosselin. It was more so me getting on the Reds for how they were talking about Phil Gosselin than actually anything to do with Phil Gosselin himself. So, Phil, if you somehow see this or somebody tells you about it, I wasn't really getting on you. And he's out to a great start so far. He's hitting 750. He's got a couple of walks. But, yeah, so let's see. All right, so Homer Bailey got, I don't know, somebody reached base. I missed it in the middle there. I don't know how it happened, but he got through that inning unscathed. Let's see, what else is there going on? Oh, if you haven't been to the site today, RedsMinorLeagues.com, if for some reason you're watching this and can't read the bottom of the screen here and don't know that I have a website, which it's weird. I actually run into people that follow me on Twitter and have no idea that I run a website. I feel like I send out 4 or 5 links a day to things to the website. I don't know how you could follow me for more than a day or two and not realize I run RedsMinorLeagues.com. But if somehow you're one of those people, I do, you should go there. But this morning I released the international signing class over the last year for the Reds. Some interesting names on there. Some you knew, some you didn't. There was one guy on there who 6'8" pitcher, which I mean you never know what these guys are going to be at this point. But I love it when you see guys that just stand out physically like that. It was a smaller class that they signed this year. There was I think it was 20 guys. Usually they sign somewhere between 35 and 40. Now, they traded away some of their pool space to pick up guys like Nick Longy. They picked up that guy last week from the Rangers. So, they use their abilities well. I think that, you're going to get, you're very likely to get more out of a guy like Nick Longy, who odds are he's going to play in the big leagues at some point. Now, what his role is going to be, that's still up in the air, but they basically got him for free. They allowed the Red Sox to maybe spend extra money. The Reds didn't send him any money. They were just able to trade his caps or trade him for cap space, pretty much. And he's already in Double-A, and he hasn't really stood out there, but he was also 21 years old in Double-A last year, and he held his own. So smaller class. They were able to use some of the money to get some other guys. I think that it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out moving forward, with the Reds only going to one Dominican Summer League team. Are they going to go with smaller signing classes now because they only have one team instead of 2 down there? Or is this just one of those things where because they're in the penalty, they have less money to spend so you can sign fewer overall players? Now, we won't see that one next year because they'll also be in the penalty phase, but in 2 years, that might be something that we could see. Actually, Mason City Limits asked if Nick Longy is fully healthy. Yes and no. I actually got an update on Nick yesterday from someone, and he's cleared to participate fully in spring training when things start. So yes, he is quote unquote fully healthy. I guess it's you never really know until you get out there and you really start making throws. But he's been ahead of schedule all off season since he had the surgery and was able to start, his rehab and, get into the throwing program. He's been ahead of schedule by a couple of weeks since the very beginning. So that's always been good. I think it's been a couple months now that we've expected him to be on target to start the season, start spring training fully ready to go. So he's out in Arizona right now where he's been working with working on his rehab. And so he's already there and doing things with guys that are technically in minor league camp, even though minor league camp hasn't started yet, so to speak. Yeah, he should be ready to go. No, unless something comes up, he'll be ready to start when the season starts. So let's see. Yankee Cooper wants to know about Jose Lopez. He's actually supposed to pitch today. I guess I shouldn't say he's supposed to pitch. He's one of the listed pitchers available today in one of the games. I don't remember which one. And since he technically isn't a minor leaguer because he's on the 40-man roster, I didn't list him today. But he is scheduled to pitch in one of the games today. So hopefully we'll get to see him. I can check this real quick and see which roster he is on. Let me set the other keyboard down. And I'll get you the answer for that and see if he's going to be on the Fox Sports Ohio game, which if you've got MLB.TV, you could watch that if you're not in the Ohio area, which it doesn't sound like you are based on your question there. But maybe you are, I'm not sure. Let me see. Getting a slow load time on the PDF here. So, Yep. I'm just gonna refresh this and see if it loads any faster because it was creeping. It's still creeping. When it gets loaded, I'll give you another update on which game he's gonna be pitching in. Let's see here. Yeah, Philip he's like Senzel's number 79 question mark. Yeah, guys that are in they're not big league 40-man roster guys. They don't really get to pick their number. They just get assigned a number. Once he gets added to the 40-man, he'll get his own number of his choosing, assuming it's available. So yeah, he'll definitely have his own number, so to speak. All right, this isn't going to load on this computer. It might be because I'm not logged in to the media stuff. Let me try it on the other computer because I know I'm logged in over there. Yeah, it loaded right away over here, so let me... Where's the rosters for today? Did they go away? Huh. And the rosters are no longer here. Yeah, there they are. I'm an idiot. I'm totally a moron. So just give me a second here. Lineups and okay. Yes. Okay, so Jose Lopez is on the pitchers available today list for the game against the Indians, which is the one on TV, so hopefully you can see him pitch. There we go. Okay. Let me bring this back up. All right. What else do we got here? So in the game with the White Sox, the Reds got on the board Scott Schebler and Cliff Pennington, not Chad Pennington, as my buddy Courage seemed to have a problem with mistaking the two with yesterday. Let's see who scored. Okay, so Goslin and Adam Duvall both walked and scored on RBI singles by Schebler and Pennington. So that I wish we could watch both games because Luis Castillo's pitching in the other game, and man, that guy's just so fun to watch. Let's see. Okay, so other pitchers. Okay, so also in the Reds and Indians game, we've got David Hernandez, Jared Hughes, Kevin Quackenbush, Jesus Reyes, Ben Rowan, and Joe Mantipley, who are also available pitchers. I'd expect that those last two guys are maybe ones that you're just going to see if somebody gets roughed up and has to get pulled early. Everybody that's on the roster doesn't always pitch in games. Usually have a few guys that are available for situations where, you know, a guy or two doesn't get through their inning of work or whatever. Let's see, who are the other pitchers for the other game? That's the Indians game. Where's the White Sox game? Okay, here's the White Sox game. So in the White Sox game, the other pitchers behind Castillo, we've got Barrett Aston, Austin Bryce. You know, I always confuse those two. There's no real reason. It's just one's Barrett Aston, one's Austin Bryce, A-B-B-A. And then you got Jose Rafael De Paula, Domingo Tapia, Vance Worley, Amir Garrett, and Wandy Peralta. I'm looking at that, I don't know who the guys would be that wouldn't be scheduled to pitch. I don't think they're listed in any specific order. So, I mean, they're not listed in any specific order, are they? I mean, that's not alphabetical or anything, so I have no idea what's going on with that one. Also, if I sound funny, I'm sorry. I hope I'm not getting sick, but my nose has been runny the past couple of days. So, sorry, but you're just going to have to deal with that one. Yeah, Ben, I would assume that Amir Garrett would probably go after Luis Castillo, just because if nothing else, he's the only other starting pitcher that's kind of among these players. And I'd imagine that at the very least, they're going to look at him as a starting pitcher in spring training, prepare him as one just in case they want to send him to AAA if he doesn't make the big league roster in one form or the other. They would like to keep him in the rotation. So, yeah, probably a good bet that he's going to be the guy that follows Luis Castillo in the White Sox game. Let's see. What do we got here? I'm just looking at Twitter real quick to make sure I didn't miss anything. I should have set up a second monitor for this one, but I did not. I did not. Okay. So, looks like the Reds left the bases loaded in the White Sox game to end the inning. Mason Williams is actually starting in center field in that game, which is good to see. If you didn't see yesterday, he got hit by a pitch, or not hit by a pitch, he got hit by a batted ball in the Reds dugout and wound up needing stitches in his chin. So it's good to see that he's good to go and back on the field, because it was scary for a little bit. They mentioned that somebody got hit. They didn't know, but he was down and being checked out, and then he was holding a towel up to his face. They couldn't really tell what was going on, and then he got carted off. I guess they took him out to the clubhouse, to the training facilities or whatever. Unlike in the big league stadiums, those aren't connected to the actual field. They're out beyond the outfield and at the complex itself. Jared Young, which do you think is best for him and the team? Phillip Ervin is the fifth outfielder, play every day in Louisville. If that's tough. I think that if you can get Phillip Ervin 2 starts a week, and then also use him as a pinch hitter every so often, a pinch runner every day or two, that's a role that I would be fine with placing him in the big leagues. I think that with Billy Hamilton's struggles at the plate, I would definitely look at playing Phillip Ervin in center field twice a week. Maybe you don't have to necessarily make an exact role of it, but if you're going to play in a smaller ballpark where the downgrade on defense from Billy Hamilton to Phillip Ervin isn't going to be as big because there's not as much ground to cover, you do something like that. Maybe on a day when Luis Castillo is pitching, he's a huge ground ball pitcher, so he's not going to give as many fly balls. The defensive aspect of center field isn't going to come into play as much on a regular basis. If you can get a better bat in the lineup, and Billy Hamilton does a lot of things well, but hitting is not one of them. Phillip Ervin, he's going to draw you some walks. He can run. He's not quite Billy Hamilton on the bases, but this is a guy who can probably steal you 30 bases a year if he gets full playing time. He runs the bases well when he's not stealing, and he can handle you. He can handle center field for you. I just think that would be a role that it would suit him well. I don't think that Brian Price would do that, though. So if he's not going to do that, I think that I'd rather see Phillip Ervin in AAA playing every day. Rounding out his skill set. Maybe he can figure out a way to hit for a slightly higher average. And really, I think that's the only thing that's been holding him back, is that he just hasn't been able to hit over 250 in the minor leagues for pretty much since the year he got drafted. He hurt his wrist at the end of that year, and he's never really hit for an average since then. But he's got some pop. He draws walks. He can run the bases. He can play center field okay-ish. He's not the greatest center fielder, but I personally think that he can handle it enough to be a major league player. But if they're not going to play him in the way that I described earlier, I think that it'd be better suited for him to go down to AAA and work on trying to round out some of the aspects of his game where you expect a little bit more. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that he's going to get used the way that I would like to see, but I guess we're going to have to wait and find out. I did actually like the fact that Brian Price said the other day that, he did think that Phillip Ervin can play center field, because, I never really got the feeling that the people that were making these decisions for the Reds felt that he was a capable enough center fielder to play every day. And maybe they still feel that way, and Brian Price was just speaking to it more as a backup kind of thing. And that's fine. I mean, if you want to make that argument, that's okay. But I think that he's been a better defender than he's been given credit for. That's not to say that I think that he's a strong defensive center fielder, because I don't believe that. But I think that he can handle the position well enough. Ben asked if Ervin's limitations in center field could be partly a result of the Reds never giving him consistent playing time out there. Yes and no. I think that one of the reasons he hasn't gotten consistent playing time out there is because he's not the strongest defender. I wrote earlier in the offseason using the StatCast data, who were the fastest Reds, and obviously Billy Hamilton was number one. But Phillip Ervin was among the top 10% of fastest players in all of baseball. I've always said that Phillip Ervin was a plus runner, but I didn't think that he quite rated out that fast. And he does. The data's there. We can see it. I mean, it's a fact at this point that Phillip Ervin is among the fastest players in all of baseball. I think that one of the issues is he doesn't. I'm not sure if it's the reads that he gets that causes the hesitation, but sometimes he'll hesitate out there. And, despite being that fast, all center fielders are fast. He might be faster than some of them, but they're all very fast. You can't play center field without being a very fast player. And so I think that that's one of the reasons he hasn't played center field consistently in the minor leagues. And, he's also been there as he's moved up the system with other very good center fielders. For a while there, he was sharing the same team with Bo Amaral, who, some scouts you talk to put him as a plus defender in center field. And so, while obviously you're going to, give your priority guys, like a first rounder like Phillip Ervin, playing time over a guy who, with all due respect to Bo Amaral, they didn't have as much invested in him. If you can play a guy like Phillip Ervin in a corner and get better defense, that's going to help your pitching. And so, minor league managers are going to do that sometimes. So I think that kind of is one of the reasons that we didn't see him play in center field as much. But at the same time, would he be better today as a center fielder if he had started 125 games a year in center field rather than going, 40 games here, 40 games in left, 40 games in right, whatever, like however it's worked out over the past couple of years. All right, guys, hold on one second. I got to blow my nose, and I really don't want to do that on camera, so I'll be back in a second. Okay, we are back. Hopefully we're back. I feel a lot better right now, so that's awesome. Let's see. Chris wants to know, what do you think the chances of I know words. What do you think the chances of Herrera getting consistent reps at second base? To start the season, I don't think that it's going to happen for him. I think that Scooter Gennett has that job locked in right now, and I think that Scooter deserves to have that job locked in. Now, with that said, Scooter does not hit left-handed pitching, so I think that if we are going to see Dilson Herrera get some time at second base, it's going to be when left-handed pitchers are on the mound, and so what is that? Once or twice a week, maybe. I think that. He would have to have an incredible spring training, and Scooter would have to have an absolutely brutal spring training for things to play out a little bit differently than that early in the season. I think that with what Scooter did last year, he deserves to have the spot no matter how he performs in spring training, unless he looks like he's injured. If he's injured, then that's a different story. But I think that just having a bad spring training, the guy's been around the major leagues for a while now. While you may not necessarily know what you're going to get in terms of repeating last year, even before last year, at least at the plate, he's been pretty much a major league average hitter, and so you kind of know what you're going to get there. So I'd be surprised if we saw a lot of Dilson Herrera early on in the season at second base. Hopefully they can find a way to work him in there. I think that maybe a platoon situation early in the season is something that would make a lot of sense. It would keep everybody fresh for one, and two, it would mitigate the issues that Scooter Gennett does have at the plate, which is, he can't hit left-handed pitching. So, let's see. Looks like Luis Castillo is actually on the mound and pitching now. And gave up a single to the first batter. So, they should probably just send him to the minor leagues now. No, I'm just kidding, but let's see. Got Tucker Barnhart at the plate on the in the Indians game right now, and if you didn't see it earlier on Twitter, Jamie Ramsey posted a picture of batting practice baseball that Tucker Barnhart literally ripped the cover apart during batting practice while hitting. So, Tucker Barnhart is not exactly known for his power, but he got a hold of that one. He really did. All right. All right, I'm going to send this link back out onto the Twitterverse. See if we can get a few more people in here. I think we got like, what was it? It says we got 11 people watching right now, which, yeah. I like the 11 of you guys that are hanging out right now, so thank you. But I would like to see a little bit more, get the chat going a little bit more, and I don't have to struggle to ramble about something and keep things going here. Let's see. Okay. Alright, we sent that one out. Chris wants to know who I think has the best chance at the last rotation spot out of spring training. Now, I think that right now you're gonna see Sal Romano and Robert Stevenson battling it out. Brian Price kind of laid things out in tiers earlier this spring. If you didn't see that, it's basically 1, 2, 3, Castillo, Bailey, DeSclafani in whatever order. He put Brandon Finnegan in his own little tier. I think that Finnegan's going to be a lock as long as he looks healthy and doesn't just get obliterated this spring. And then he put Robert Stevenson and Sal Romano in that next tier, and then Tyler Malley and Michael Lorenzen in that last tier by themselves. I think that with what Stevenson and Romano did last year in the second half, they should have an upper leg on the other two guys. With Sal Romano, who pitched on Friday, he looked pretty good. You've got a guy who, he's going to throw more strikes than Stevenson, or at least he has in the past. He's not going to miss as many bats, but he's going to get more ground balls. With Stevenson, you've got a little bit more upside, a guy who's going to miss more bats, but as we've seen for the last 3 years, he struggles to throw strikes at times. When he's on, it's just filthy stuff, and he can get anybody out. But there are games where he'll go out there and he struggles to throw strikes, and I think that if you're going to look between those two, if Stevenson can throw strikes during the spring, it's going to be a close call. If Stevenson struggles, then I think Sal's got a leg up on that one, as he should. I wouldn't sleep on Tyler Malley. Now, I do think that he will have to outperform the other two guys to get that spot, and maybe by a decent margin. He's younger. He's got the least amount of experience, both in AAA and in the major leagues. And rightly or wrongly, he's got more options to use too. So, that always comes into play. But what Tyler does and that's not to say that Michael Lorenzen and Sal Romano don't throw enough strikes, because they do. But historically, Tyler Malley just pounds the strike zone unlike most guys. And Brian Price loves that about pitchers, and obviously everybody should love that about pitchers. You don't want guys that walk guys, but he's just on a different level than a lot of other guys are. So if he goes out there and he has a very strong spring and somebody else has hiccups, it wouldn't surprise me if he got in the running. But I think as things stand right now, you'd go Sal Romano with a slight edge over Robert Stevenson, who has a decent size edge over Tyler Malley right now at least. And then I think that Michael Lorenzen would have to have the most perfect spring ever to win the rotation spot. I think that they're letting him start because he wants to start, and they like Michael Lorenzen, but I think that it's more just something that they're doing to appease him and let him start right now, rather than something they're truly, honestly considering putting him at the number 5 spot in the rotation. It's been 2 years since he started. I don't know. And maybe I'm wrong, but I think that it's just them trying to appease what he wants versus what they're actually planning on doing. Let's see here. So, Homer Bailey is done, which if you're watching, you already knew that, but if you're watching the replay and didn't watch the game and haven't seen anything yet, 2 innings, no runs, 2 hits, 3 strikeouts, no walks. I missed a few at-bats, but generally speaking, he looked good. So that's always nice to see. Let's see. Luis Castillo is still on the mound. He gave up that first batter single. He's gotten the next 2 guys on a pop out and a line out. And now we've got David Hernandez on the mound for the Reds in the Indians game. Let's see. Oh my gosh. Okay, so Chris with another question. Chris has all the questions, guys, and Chris, keep asking them. I have no problem answering them. But if the rest of you guys have questions, I'm definitely willing to take anything you've got right now. I'm probably going to try and go for probably 2 hours today if things can keep going. So if you've got questions, feel free to ask them in the chat here on YouTube, and I will get right onto it. But yeah, let's get back to Chris's question. Do you think the person that doesn't get the fifth spot goes to AAA or the Major League bullpen? It depends on who you're talking about. I think that, like I said, Michael Lorenzen's going to go to the bullpen if he doesn't win the rotation spot. I think that we all know that one. But I think that if between the other three guys that we just talked about, Stevenson, Romano, and Malley, if they don't get the spot in the rotation, I do think that they'll go to AAA and work as a starter. Last year, they did that with Robert Stevenson, and it did not work out well in the bullpen for him. Now, I do think that was partially because Brian Price didn't use him out of the bullpen except for once a week, and I just don't know how you're supposed to go out there and perform with usage like that. It just doesn't make sense. It's tough to get side work in when you might have to pitch later that day. So he wasn't really getting work except for once a week. If you go back and look at his game logs, when he went 5 days between appearances as a reliever with the Reds last year, he just got obliterated. It was not good. When he got regular usage in the bullpen, now great, we're talking small sample size in either situation here, but he performed well when he got regular usage as a reliever last year. But I don't know. Eventually the front office kind of stepped in and said enough is enough. We're going to send Stevenson back to AAA to work as a starter, and then eventually he got back to the major leagues as a starter later in the season. And performed well. Still too many strikes, but he kept runs off the board, and he was missing bats. So, but I think that if one of those three guys gets the rotation spot, then the other two will go back to AAA and work as starters, which is good. I think that's the right move. Hopefully that's what they do. I think that it would be silly to try and use any of those three guys in the bullpen. I think that's short-term thinking, especially with what we've seen happen to the rotation over the last few years. You've got too many guys coming off of injuries. And again, even if they weren't, pitchers get hurt. And so you're going to use probably 10 starters in a year, in an average year. The Reds have used a lot more than that the past couple of seasons. So having guys that are ready to go, and if you can go to, say, a Sal Romano or a Robert Stevenson or a Tyler Malley, instead of going to, your AAA veteran who's, barely hanging on to his career, that's very beneficial for the Reds. You're generally not taking a step backwards, so to speak, if somebody does get hurt and you have to call somebody up from AAA. Let's see. Any word on Zeke White, the third player from the Straley trade? Does he repeat Billings? I think he will repeat Billings. I don't really have a word necessarily on him. I think that there's some tools there, but the production just hasn't been there for him so far. He's still young. He can run well, but he has not hit so far as a professional. I think that either Billings or maybe the Greenville affiliate would work fine for him. I don't know if he's quite ready for full season ball yet, but we'll see. If he goes out and has a good spring training, everything could change. But I think that right now he'll probably be pegged for one of the short season advanced rookie level teams. Should the Reds try and move Devin Mesoraco? Is there much interest or not because of his salary? I don't think that. I mean, if he were making $4 million, I don't think there'd be much interest right now because he hasn't shown that he can, one, stay healthy, and two, somebody just went deep against David Hernandez. I can't tell who it is yet, but I guess it doesn't really matter who it was. But yeah, even if Devin Mesoraco weren't making that much money, I don't think there'd be too many interested parties because, I mean, he hasn't stayed healthy, and when he has been healthy and on the field the past couple years, he hasn't hit. So, I mean, and that's the thing with Mesoraco. He's never been known for his glove. He's been a bat-first catcher, and as a bat-first catcher, you have to hit a little bit, and he hasn't been able to do that. So I think that it just doesn't make sense right now for the Reds to try and move him because nobody's going to be interested. And to get somebody to take him on, you'd have to give up something of actual value that you probably want to hold on to. So they're stuck with him for right now. And I mean, I don't want to say stuck with him like it's a bad thing. I think that he's a fine backup catcher if he can actually stay on the field. But I just think that he's going to be a Red for the rest of his contract, which is, it's up at the end of this season. So I think that he's going to be pretty much with the Reds as it is. Tucker Barnhart's a starter, so it's going to be hard to trade your backup catcher to somebody for anything of value. So let's see. And Jesse Winker just singled in his second plate appearance of the game, in the White Sox game. Let's see. I have Mason Williams grounded out before that. So Luis Castillo gave up 1 hit in his inning of work so far over in that game. It's funny, we're already in the 3rd inning of the Indians game, and we're just now starting the 2nd inning of the Reds and White Sox game. So, yeah, thanks, Chris. It was Jason Kipnis that homered off of David Hernandez in the Indians game. Let's see. Just scrolling through Twitter real quick to make sure that I didn't miss anything going on. Does not look like it. So that's always good. So I actually got a hold of the Reds spring training roster for the minor league side of camp. That will come out tomorrow morning on the site. It's 160 players. And then obviously as big league camp gets further along, guys will get sent back to minor league camp and those numbers will expand a little bit. But for right now, it's 160 players. I'll have that all on the site tomorrow morning. Well, it'll probably go up right after midnight tonight if you're going to be up that late. That's usually how I do it. I'll publish something for the morning, but I'll do it at midnight, 1 o'clock as I'm wrapping up my work day. And then so you can check that out. There were a few interesting names on it. Not as many guys coming over from the Dominican Summer League for spring training this year as I expected. I feel like there were a few more guys last year than there are this year, but I'm trying to think. Oh, the biggest one is it's not even a guy that played last year, but Jose Garcia, the Cuban shortstop they signed last June for, they paid him $5 million and then paid a $5 million bonus or penalty to Major League Baseball, which that still drives me nuts that basically the owners pay themselves as a penalty. Now, granted, it's not like they put it right back in their pocket, but they're paying Major League Baseball penalty for money they were willing to pay to sign a player, and the player doesn't get any of it. It just boggles my mind that they had that whole thing set up. Since they started that penalty thing, there's been over $200 million paid to Major League Baseball's central fund as a part of penalty. That's money that should have gone to the players, and it just frustrates me. Like, I don't know. It's infuriating. It drives me crazy. So, Clay Snowden wants to know, what do you think Oliver Perez can bring to the Reds? If they use him right, I think that it's a good pickup. He was very successful against left-handed hitters last year, the year before, pretty much throughout his entire career. Right-handers, they hit him like I'm out there pitching. I mean, they tee off on him. He should not face a single right-handed batter all year unless it's going to be one of those situations where he comes in, faces a lefty, intentionally walks the right-hander that's splitting him up, and then faces another lefty. Like, that's the only reason that he should ever face a right-handed batter at this point in his career. They see the ball very well off of him. He does not have any success against them. But if they use him literally as a loogie, then I think he could be beneficial for the Reds. If they use him as just a regular reliever who can face both righties and lefties, that's a terrible plan. Hopefully they're smart enough to realize that. I'm sure that they are, but sometimes things dictate that you have to do things that you don't necessarily think are the best. So if they use him right, I think it's a good pickup. If they don't use him right, then I'd be hesitant. But hopefully they do use him properly. What do you think they'll do with Rookie Davis if he cannot crack the 5-man rotation? Well, I think that'll be interesting because, we know Rookie Davis is going to be ready to start the year. So he's going to join some club at some point further down the road. If there's not a spot open for him in the rotation, do you slide him into the bullpen? I personally would. I think that he profiles better as a reliever than he does as a starter. And while that's not to say that I don't think that he could start, I think that he's so far down the depth chart at this point as from starting pitching standpoint that, you can get quicker usage of him out of the bullpen. I think his stuff plays well out of the bullpen. That's personally what I would do. I have no idea what the Reds' actual plan is for him, though. One, it could depend on how he recovers from his hip surgery. But, yeah, I don't know. That's one I don't really have an answer for. I just know what I would personally do in that situation. Projected starting catchers in AAA and AA. Stuart Turner in AAA, Tony Sanchez in AAA. Oh my gosh, I forgot this guy's name yesterday on Friday too. They signed another veteran free agent catcher who's in big league camp. If you can help me out, that would be great because I'm an idiot. Let me see. I'm on the wrong thing here. You go to the Reds roster. I'm an idiot. I am an idiot. Is it Tony Cruz? I'm waiting for the roster to load, but I feel like it was Tony Cruz. Yeah, so, they've got a few guys for that AAA, AA situation. Joe Hudson is probably going to be in AA again this year. Now, whether he's the starter or... they'll probably split time, as most minor league catchers do. But I think that, Tony Cruz, Joe Hudson, Stuart Turner, and Tony Sanchez are probably going to be the four guys that they play between those catcher spots in AA and AAA. Now, if one guy winds up getting, more time than the other, so be it. But I'd expect it at the worst a 60-40 split at each level between those four guys. Yeah, I'm pretty sure, Clay, that Tony Perez is not going to be one of the catchers there. He corrected himself. But yeah, he initially typed Tony Perez, and he's like Cruz in the chat. Any word on the health of Travieso? Do they keep him as a starter? Actually, I haven't talked to Nick probably in a while, actually. So I don't actually have an update on him, but I will check in and see, and I'll try and post one on the site later this week. I do think they're going to try and keep him as a starter for now. He's a 3-pitch guy, so it makes sense to keep him as a starter for right now. He's still relatively young. I think he's only going to be 23 this season. Now, how he comes back from the injury, that's always going to dictate kind of the role. But, we saw a guy like, Jonathan Crawford come back, and, they've used him as a starter. And, even though the results haven't been good, it's been more of a situation where they just want to get him those reps, and, more throwing is better in some cases. And so, they've kept him as a starter to just try and get more innings on his arm and prepare him for, maybe a different role down the road. I would expect Travieso, there's a chance he could go back to Daytona just to kind of get his feet wet, and once he gets going, promote him back up to AA Pensacola. But there's a chance that he might just go straight to Pensacola. It just all depends on how he's looking when he's ready to come back. But, yeah, I'll reach out to somebody this week and try and get an update, an actual real update on where he's at and if he's going to be ready to go or not. All right, guys, I'm going to walk away and blow my nose again for a second, so I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that, but you really don't want to see or hear any of that, so. What do we got here? Let me bring this box score back up. Looks like the Reds scored again. A Eugenio Suarez 2-run home run. So that's good. And then Luis Castillo made quick work of the White Sox there in the second. So Castillo's final line, 2 innings, 1 hit, 1 strikeout, no runs. Let me see here. Okay. So, thoughts on Brandon Dixon potentially doing what Patrick Kivlahan did last year? He can play several positions, and I personally love what he brings to the Reds. I agree. I really like the idea of Brandon Dixon possibly being a super utility player. He can play, I mean, I wouldn't put him at shortstop, and I'd be very hesitant to put him in center field. I'd only in emergency situations would I put him at any of those two positions, but I think that he can play anywhere else on the field as a backup. And, you know, he's got some speed, so he can provide value on the bases. As you saw on Friday, he can hit the ball 10 miles, so there's plenty of pop there. I think that he fits well in that utility role if that's something that you are looking for on your bench. Now, whether the Reds are going to do that or not, use him in that scenario, I don't know if they're going to do it, you know, out of the gate this year. But I really like the idea of giving him that opportunity because I think that his skill set it fits that profile very well. You never really know how guys are going to go from playing every day, so to speak, to not playing every day. You know, having their spots, you know, picked here and there. You know, maybe pitching matchups or just being a pinch hitter off the bench, and you know, only getting six at bats a week. Some guys can handle that, some guys can't, and you don't really know until you actually know. But I think from a skills perspective, that's a role that I'd love to see him given a shot at. Steven wants to know who I'd like to see the Reds draft this year. I mean, I'd love to see him draft Brady Singer, but I don't think he'll be there at number 5. I think that he's right now clearly the number 1 pick in the draft. Beyond that, I really don't know. I think that he's head and shoulders above everybody else in this draft class right now, and everybody else they've got to show me more before I really say who I think one will be there at number 5 and 2 who I'd like to see him take. This draft class is heavy on pitching. It's weak positionally. When you're talking about the top 10 right now, it seems like there's only 1 or 2 position players in there. The number 1 guy position-wise seems to be Nick Madrigal. I probably just butchered his name, so we can all point and laugh at me because I'm a moron. But shortstop, second baseman at Oregon or Oregon State, one of the two. I can't remember, but he's an undersized guy. He's small, but the guy can hit. He can really hit. But if you don't think he can play shortstop, I'm not taking him in the top 5. There'd be too many questions at that point, and he doesn't play shortstop right now in college. So you'd have to be really confident that he could play shortstop for me to make him the number 5 pick in the draft there. So at this point, I think that they'll probably go pitcher. But there's a lot of baseball to be played between now and the first week of June when the draft happens. So we will see. Okay, yeah, shortstop Oregon State. I thought it was Oregon State, but then I hesitated on myself there. But yeah, I like his hit tool a lot, but I'm just not sure that the rest of his game works out well enough that I'd spend a top 5 pick on him if he can't play shortstop. So let me see. Checking Twitter to make sure I didn't miss anything here. So our good buddy Chad Dotson from Red Lake Nation, he just tweeted out, "Is it a nipple thing?" Those are words that Joey Votto just said on television. I did not hear those words because I've got the sound down pretty low, so I can actually, 1, not broadcast their game over YouTube because, yeah, that's illegal, and 2, I can kind of focus on what's going on with the live stream here. But yeah, that's pretty funny. Joey Votto's awesome. He is. Looks like we got Jared Hughes on the mound in the Indians game now for the Reds. Vance Worley is on the mound for the Reds in the White Sox game, but he has not thrown a pitch yet, according to Game Day. Let's see here. All right, let's talk a little bit about some more of these minor league guys that are in the games today, or at least on the rosters today. Let me scroll back down and actually find the guys that are listed here. But yeah, I personally I can't wait to see Tyler Stevenson in the game. today for the Reds against the Indians. That guy's he's just had some bad luck the past couple of years with injuries. Last year he had a thumb injury that was initially diagnosed, and they thought it was going to keep him out the whole season or the rest of the season, and it did. But it turns out that he probably could have played a little bit during the season after the injury, and so he was able to come back and participate in instructional league, which is great because more baseball is better baseball. But hopefully he can put together a full season this year, and continue with the strides that he took last season. In 2016, he basically played for 3 or 4 weeks before he got hurt, and then he played sparingly, just going back and forth between the disabled list and the active roster for a week or two before, it just started hurting again, and he went back. But he big strides defensively last year. Now there's still plenty of work to do, but it was night and day difference between 2016 and 2017 defensively for Tyler Stevenson behind the plate. He looked a lot more comfortable, more confident. The tools were playing a little bit better. Now at the plate, he started showing more of that power potential that you didn't really see from him in 2016. Now, granted, he wasn't playing healthy at hardly any point during 2016, so that's understandable. But you could really see steps forward in the power department last year, I think. So hopefully in 2018 here he can get a full season or close to a full season. As a catcher he might only play 90 or 100 games, because it's just the grind that the catcher position takes on you. But fortunately he'll be able to take advantage of the DH and get some extra at bats that way. But I'm really looking forward to hopefully seeing a full season from Tyler Stevenson and what he can do with a full array of playing time rather than what's happened to him the last 2 seasons. Let's see what else. Who else do we have? Okay, so Narciso Crook is an interesting guy. He's basically missed the last 2 seasons. He played a handful of games in 2016. And he played a handful of games in 2017. He's not ever really hit well. But from a pure tools perspective, Crook has it all. There's a lot of power in there. He's fast. He can throw. He can run. Oh, I guess that would go with he's fast. But yeah, there's a lot to like there, and he's basically missed the last 2 seasons. He's back and healthy now. He actually played on Friday. Another guy that I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do if given the opportunity to play a full season. It's been quite a while since you saw that, and I think the last time that he did that he was 19 years old. So definitely sucks that he's missed developmental time, but hopefully he can put things together, and we can start to see some of those tools turn into skills this year, because there's a lot of athleticism with Narciso Crook. So let's see, Andy Segilio, also a guy that's in the he's on the travel roster for the Indians game now. I don't know if we're gonna see him or not. He's a guy who played in Billings last year, but he might be the fastest guy this side of Billy Hamilton in the entire organization. He's a plus runner. He played very well last year. There's some tools there for him too. So I don't know. I would love to see him actually just get in the game today and hit an infield ground ball to third base and just let him fly down the line and see what happens. We saw that the other day with Jose Siri. I actually went back and I ran the stopwatch, and I got a 3.82 on Jose Siri from home to first, which is that's ridiculously stupid fast from the right side. It's ridiculously stupid fast if you're coming from the left side, but it's really, really fast when you come from the right side. And Andy Segilio's he's in that same range with Jose Siri and Billy Hamilton in terms of speed. So that would be fun to see. We've got a few questions here in the chat, so let me catch up on this. Best guess on the rotation for the bats to start the year. I think 2 of the 3 guys between Sal Romano, Robert Stevenson, and Tyler Mahle. Whoever doesn't win the number 5 spot, put the other 2 in the rotation in AAA. I'd say Amir Garrett. Let me think here. Let me bring up the Reds spring training roster, and that'll give me a better idea of what we're looking at here. Because put me on the spot. There's a lot of stuff going on. I feel like there's somebody very obvious that I'm missing right now, and I don't know who it is because I'm an idiot. The Reds roster isn't loading. I'm having all kinds of streaming problems today, and I don't know why. I've got plenty of bandwidth going. Let's see. Who was there last year that I'm just completely forgetting about? There's got to be somebody. I mean, total brain fart right now, guys. I'm sorry. I mean, maybe you could see Jose Lopez there. It just all depends on how things shake out. I personally believe that he's ready to step up to AAA. A guy like Jose or Jesus Reyes, probably not ready for AAA as a starting pitcher. I think that he's definitely ready to jump up to that level if they were going to put him in the bullpen, which is where I think that ultimately he's going to wind up. But I don't think that we're there yet as far as a starting pitcher goes. Let me see here. Where did the other game go? Oh, okay. I'm having problems with the box score updating over here on my second screen or second computer. What are your thoughts on the new idea that we'll let any three batters bat in the ninth? I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. It's stupid. I saw where they said something like, oh, well, LeBron James wouldn't be sitting on the sideline. Tom Brady wouldn't be sitting on the sideline, whatever. Yeah, actually, Tom Brady would be sitting on the sideline when his team doesn't have the ball. So, yeah, that's how it works in other sports, too. LeBron James doesn't have the ball in his hands if the other team has the ball for the last 24 seconds of the game. That's how it works. And I understand that, when, let's say, the Indians, the Cavs have the basketball at the end of the game, then yeah, LeBron James is going to be on the court. But, LeBron doesn't always take the last shot. I mean, usually you want him to, and he's probably going to in most scenarios, but sometimes somebody else is taking the last shot. Joey Votto doesn't always get to bat in the ninth inning. I mean, yeah, I think it'd be cool if he could because he's the best Reds hitter, but that's not how baseball works. It's just not. I hate the idea. I think it's stupid. Score earlier in the game and you don't have to worry about it. Have the lead in the ninth inning. It doesn't matter. So, I don't know. When I first heard that idea, I thought it was stupid. I don't know. I just don't like it. Oh, Amir Garrett, AAA rotation. I told you I was totally forgetting somebody who was very obvious. I'm an idiot. So, Amir Garrett, maybe Cody Reed. It depends on if he wins a spot in the rotation. You've got Jackson Stevens. I think that he'd be in the rotation in AAA unless they decided to move him into the bullpen, which they may do, they may not do. I don't know what their plan is for that. I think that Jackson Stevens would be a very good fit for the bullpen. That's not to say that I don't think he could start, but I think that he's a number 5 starter in the major leagues, whereas in the bullpen I think he could be very effective. I'd love to see him just go out there and work that fastball curveball combination. So you've got a lot. You've got Stevenson, Romano, Malley, Jackson Stevens, Cody Reed, Jose Lopez, Amir Garrett. Those are kind of your options for the AAA rotation. So if it plays out, I'd imagine that Jose Lopez probably goes back to AA just because there's not room. But there are guys that you could slide from the guys we just talked about into the bullpen, and that could open up a spot for Jose Lopez in AAA. So we'll have to see how that one plays out. All right. So that's the questions for the chat. Let's see. So looking at the travel roster against the White Sox, Stuart Fairchild he's somebody I'm interested to see play this year. When he came out of Wake Forest last year, second-round pick for the Reds, that one of the bigger selling points was speed, defense, and power. Now, he definitely showed speed and defense. Some people have said that he's the best defensive center fielder in the organization. among minor leaguers. I don't know if I agree with that or not. I can't say for sure. I haven't seen him, but if he's better than Jose Siri, that's one heck of a defender. But what he didn't do is show any power, and he didn't show any power in Billings, where a lot of people show plenty of power. So that was surprising to me. He's a guy, he hit 17 home runs at Wake Forest last year. And he just didn't show much power at all in the Pioneer League. Now, he made plenty of contact, which was good to see, drew some walks. He hit, but the power wasn't there. So that's kind of the thing that I want to see, or I want to focus on with Stuart Fairchild this year, when kind of going out there and watching him take batting practice, just to see if it's just something that hasn't translated to the games just yet, or if maybe he was more a product of, the aluminum bats that they do use in college baseball. It seems that scouts all seem to think that the power was there despite the aluminum bats, and it would translate. But so far it hasn't. And I mean that happens with some guys, and it takes a little bit to come through. But that's the one thing I'm going to watch with Stuart Fairchild this year. What do we got going on up here in the Reds game? Oh, well, apparently nothing now because they're showing the bench. Let's see. We got Indians and White Sox game. Yeah, I don't know what's going on in the Indians and the Reds and White Sox game, because it seems like Vance Worley's been on the mound for 7 years and hasn't thrown a pitch yet, according to the box score. So I'm sure they're actually playing, but nothing's really going on so far. And on the mound for the Indians is this guy named Fife, and all I can think about is Barney Fife. And yeah, I'm not funny, but it did make me laugh. So the Reds got 2 runners on here in the 4th inning against Cleveland, with Devin Mesoraco at the plate. Let's see him hit 117 miles. That'd be fun. Do you think any trades will happen during spring training? I mean, I wouldn't rule it out. I think that, I'd say it's more likely that the Reds pick somebody up on waivers than make a trade. But, sometimes teams have needs, and they can't wait for the waiver wire to come. And I mean, it wouldn't surprise me terribly if, say, a team had an injury at second base and the Reds tried to move Scooter Gennett, for example. But I think that as far as the Reds bringing somebody in to try and fill one of their needs, I don't think that would happen. But I do think there's a small situation where they may try and move somebody like Gennett in a trade where somebody needed a second baseman and didn't have the depth there to fill it internally. I think that it's far more likely that they do something like they did last year and pick somebody up off of waivers towards the end of spring training to try and fill a need, or maybe just add somebody to their roster that they think would make them better. I mean, much like they did with Scooter Gennett last year. They didn't really need Scooter Gennett as they headed into the regular season. They viewed him as more of a backup kind of player for them, and Jose Peraza was going to be the second baseman. But Jose Peraza got out to a slow start, and Scooter Gennett, he never stopped hitting once he started. So, he kind of took over from there, and double play by Mesoraco ended the inning. But, yeah, so I think we're more likely to see like a waiver wire pickups than something like a trade coming down the chute. So, oh man, my throat's starting to get to me, guys. Let's see. I'm gonna refresh this White Sox game because I don't know if maybe it's just not updating because there's something weird going on, or are any of the beat writers covering the Chicago game? I guess I could look at that. Although I guess the Reds did lose out on one beat writer recently, with Zach going to, well, I guess we don't know where he's going yet, but he's not going to be covering the Reds anymore. We do know that. Okay, well, Bernie Pleskoff, where's he writing at now? Clubhouse Corner. I mean, he's worked everywhere. He's a former Major League scout. He's written for MLB.com and several other places. Apparently, he's at the White Sox game, and he just tweeted out a couple of minutes ago that Vance Worley's getting hit pretty hard right now by the White Sox. Solid contact against him, not missing many bats. Again, the box score hasn't updated, so I have no idea what's going on as far as how many hits he's given up, how many batters he's faced. It's still listed as he hasn't thrown a single pitch, but it doesn't sound like it's going very well for him. Let's see. Yeah, no other updates beyond that so far. Okay, as I said that, Bernie just tweeted out a double and 4 straight singles off of Reds Worley. He's getting just a bit too much of the plate. Balls are being hit hard. Maybe he's just trying to work out his delivery, but he isn't showing too much. I mean, that's what a double and 4 straight singles. That's got to be at least 3 runs, right? I guess it doesn't have to be, but it would seem like it should be. So, yeah, things don't seem like they're going very well over there. But okay, dead to rights, trade possibilities. You have to expand on that question a little bit more. I'm not really sure what you're asking, so get a little bit more specific with that one, and I will chime in. Looks like Worley is done for the day, and Wandy Peralta is coming into the game. So, at least over with the White Sox game, it looks like we're probably going to get an extra pitcher that we otherwise wouldn't have seen today. So, from my perspective, that's good to see, because I always like it when you get extra minor league guys, game action against major leaguers. Or, well, they probably won't be facing major leaguers today, but I mean, at least getting out there on the field. That experience does go a long way, so hopefully we'll get a chance to see somebody that we wouldn't have gotten to see otherwise. Well, I did not realize that the Reds had no hits so far in the Indians game. Kevin Quackenbush is on the mound for the Reds right now, so let's see. Actually, I'm going to look something up real quick here. Looking up what Vance Worley did last year, because off the top of my head, I can't really remember it. Okay, yeah, so last year, Vance Worley put up a 6.91 ERA in 71.2 innings. And that was in Miami in a big ballpark. Give up 99 hits in 71.2 innings. So, I mean, there's a reason he was a non-roster invitee to spring training. Obviously, you would have liked to have seen him come out with a better outing than that, but yeah, I guess I shouldn't say it's terribly surprising that he got hit around a little bit today, but it's not terribly surprising because he got hit around a lot last year too. Interesting. I'm interesting something I read on Twitter that has nothing to do with baseball. I'm sorry. Who is more likely to be traded, Duvall or Schebler? Yeah, I really don't know. I think that they're similar overall value players. They just go about getting their value a little bit differently. I'd try and sell high on Adam Duvall. His lack of on base skills that's something that I would rather take my chances on with Scott Schebler, who draws a little bit more walks, and then the power downgrade isn't much. I think if you put Jesse Winker over in left field, that would be the most ideal defensive and offensive situation. But so that's what I do, but I don't know what the Reds favor one way or the other. Clay, what do I do with the money I get from Patreon? I pay my bills. I eat food and keep the electricity going. Right now, I think we're at like $816 a month that I get from the awesome people on Patreon that help support the work that I do. The other way that I make money, for those who are curious, is the advertising that runs on the website. But I mean, that's that's pretty much how I make all of my money and pay all of my bills. If I've got a few things set up on Patreon right now that if I reach if I reach $1,000, I'll take an extra trip. But I think that that's going to happen either way. And I've said that if I got the Patreon thing up to $1,200 a month, that I would add a second writer that would try and do like more feature kind of stories. Along the way, which that's something that I'd love to do. But right now I just can't afford to pay someone else to write for the site. I've said it before many times. I get people that reach out to me that want to, they're willing to work for free and write for the site, but I'm not willing to let someone work for free and write for the site. I understand that people get that experience and exposure for their work, and I've got a big enough reach. We get millions of views a year at the site, so the exposure would be nice. But as someone who has written for free before, trying to get exposure for my work that would lead to other things, I've never felt that it was worth it. And I do think there are situations where it is worth it. I don't think that writing for RedsMinorLeagues.com is one of those situations. I don't think the rewards that you could possibly see for working for free work out there. So it's just not something that I'm willing to let someone do right now. It would have to be someone I would bring in to pay for their work, and I just can't afford to do that right now. So if the Patreon money does get higher, that is something that I'm going to do, but it is not there right now. So also, if you want to support the site on Patreon, you can do that. You can sign up at patreon.com/RedsMinorLeagues. You can sign up for any amount of money that you want to. You can. It's set up for $4, but when you go to sign up, you can change that to whatever amount you want, and it's just a once a month recurring fee. So if you can, that's great. I appreciate it. If you can't, I understand. There's only so much money that goes around, and while I definitely think that what I do is important, I understand that it's not really important in the grand scheme of things. So if you're on a tight budget, I totally get it. If you've got some spare money floating around, hey, I have bills to pay, and I would appreciate your support. So there's my sales pitch for the day, guys, hopefully. But yeah, I'll expand on that a little bit more because there's no other questions right now. But I use it to pay the bills. I use it to travel to the games. This year I'm heading out to spring training in 3.5 weeks. I think that I'm leaving on March 17th to start driving out to Arizona, or maybe it's the 16th. I don't know. Let me check the calendar. Okay, so yes, I will be leaving March 16th to drive out to Arizona, and then I'll be taking in games on the backfields from the 19th through the 24th of March. And I can't wait. I'll have stuff up every day. I'll be recording videos while I'm out there with the guys playing. I'm going to try and set up a couple of interviews with some players and maybe some front office types while I'm out there. Just kind of all depends on both my schedule and their schedule and how things work out. But with the Reds adding the team in Greenville, that's going to be another trip that I'm making this year that I wouldn't have made in the past because the team didn't exist, but because it's over here on the east of the Mississippi River, it's a much easier and cheaper trip. Driving out to Arizona, I spend 4 days on the road. If you don't know, I don't fly on planes because I'm a crazy person and I'm scared to die in a plane crash, even though a commercial flight hasn't crashed in the United States in a very long time. It's just something that's in my head, and I totally understand that it's an irrational fear. So at the very least, I understand that I'm not crazy because I understand that it's irrational, but I can't bring myself to do it. So I drive everywhere that I go. But so that'll be an extra trip that I'll add this year. How long I'll be there, I'm not sure. At the very least, I'll be there for 3 days. But it just depends on who's going to be on the roster and things like that. If it's a stacked roster, I'll be there longer. There'll be more baseball that I need to see, more players that I need to see. If it's a light roster, I don't really need to be there as long as, would otherwise be. Hotels aren't cheap. So if I can save, $150 by only going there for 3 days instead of 5 or 6, That $150 means that I'll get to spend that money traveling somewhere else or staying somewhere else for a little bit longer. Hopefully, I get to make a trip to Billings this year, but again, Billings is a 2-day drive. So that's 4 days in a car where I'm not necessarily getting too much work done. Like I'll drive for, 13, 14 hours, get to my hotel, write for 2 or 3 hours, go to sleep, get up, and then drive the rest of the way. And so, you've got the fact that I'm not making as much money because advertising is going to be down because there's not as many articles going up while I'm out driving and doing no work. Plus, I've got to stay in hotels along the way, and it would be so much easier if I could just fly, guys, but I just can't do it. But I'm hoping to make it out to Billings this year, but again, it's all going to depend on, one, how good the roster is and if it's worth making that trip, because even if I go for 4 days, I mean, that's going to be a 9-day trip overall because of all the driving that's included with that. So it's not a cheap trip to make. So, but yeah, so that's kind of what I do with the Patreon money and the advertising money and all of that. Who do you think are a few guys that are non-roster guys that can make the team? Probably looking at utility guys or relievers. I don't think any non-roster starting pitcher is going to make it. I don't think any non-roster position players are going to make it as far as winning a starting job. I don't really think there's any starting jobs that are really up for debate anyways as far as position players go. But we'll start with the bullpen. I think that a guy like Jimmy Herget, he's got a big leg up on a lot of the guys as far as the non-roster guys go. He's dominated in the upper minor league levels. Let's see, a guy like Kyle Crockett. He's a left-handed reliever. With Oliver Perez coming in, those chances dwindled a little bit. I think Oliver Perez and Kyle Crockett both have a good chance of making the roster because they can be left-handed specialists. And while the Reds have Wandy Peralta, I think they'd rather use him as a full inning reliever rather than a matchup guy. Now, and maybe you match him up in the 7th, 8th inning with Michael Lorenzen, and if one side is going to be lefty dominant, you pitch Peralta in that inning and then Lorenzen in the other one. But I think having that situational lefty is something that they're going to look to add. So a guy like Oliver Perez, Kyle Crockett, those guys fit that role pretty well. So those are the guys that I look at from the pitchers. Tanner Rainey has a very small outside shot. I mean, he's got the best stuff of anybody from the non-roster guys, and it's not particularly close. But he struggled in Double-A last year with walks. He struggled at times with walks in the past as well before that. So if he comes out and just has an incredible spring, throws a lot of strikes, doesn't walk guys, then I think that he's a guy that could be added in one of those long shot situations. But with a great spring, it wouldn't be completely shocking if he did it, but I think the odds are pretty low on that. When you look at the position guys, Cliff Pennington, because I think that he right now is the backup shortstop option they've got. And he can play other places too. He's a switch hitter. That helps. Patrick Kivlahan, I personally don't see where he fits well with the roster as it's currently constructed, but I think that Brian Price does like him, and he would probably push for that if Kivlahan has a solid spring. A guy like Darnell Sweeney fits in pretty well. He can play, I don't think that I'd play him at shortstop on an everyday basis, but he's a guy who can back you up at shortstop, second base, third base. He can play the outfield, so he definitely can play a lot of positions. There's enough to like with his bat. He's also a switch hitter, so I think that he's got an outside shot as well. If Rosell Herrera decides to hit a home run every game this spring, why not? He's played in 2 games so far. He's got 2 home runs. I really don't think he's got too much of a shot. I think he'll wind up in the minor leagues. But so there's a few guys that I think from the non-roster side that could make things. But Cliff Pennington's probably got the best chance of the position guys. I wouldn't sleep on a guy like Darnell Sweeney, although I do think the odds are stacked against him a little bit. Oliver Perez among the pitchers, I think, has the best chance. Major league veteran, and he just fits that role a little bit better than the other guys do. But I wouldn't be surprised at all if Jimmy Herget made it. He's got stuff. He's got performance under his belt in the upper minor league levels, and I think that he's going to have a good spring because he's a good pitcher. So that's my take. Actually got a question on Twitter, which I don't know if Brian's even following along here on YouTube or not, but I'm going to answer this question anyways. He said, how would you rate Winker's speed? Winker's he's a 45 runner, 45 runner. Again, I mentioned earlier today that I looked at an article I wrote an article where I used the StatCast information to rate out each guy's speed, and Winker was below average, not by much, to be honest. Like I was a little bit surprised that it wasn't by much. But he is a little bit below average runner. He's 40-45 guy, which 50 is major league average. He's never going to be known for his speed. He's a corner outfield guy. He's not going to steal you many bases, but he's not going to be confused with a catcher either. Nick wants to know, does Brian Price make it through the whole season? I think so. I think the only way that Brian Price would get let go is if we had another situation where all kinds of starting pitchers got hurt and the team was just performing very poorly because of that. I think that the roster is a lot stronger top to bottom this year than it has been in the past. And I think that it's almost exclusively because there's just more starting pitchers prepared this year than there has been in the past to come up and help if there are injuries. So, and even then we've seen what has happened when the Reds have had all kinds of injuries in the past. It seems like the ownership and management in the front office didn't really put that blame on Brian Price for how the team has performed, because I think they understood that there was really nothing that he could do. He could only pitch the guys that were out there and available for him, and it wasn't necessarily his fault that they weren't performing as well as you would hope, because they just weren't ready yet. And I think that right now that these guys are ready for the most part. Like we mentioned earlier, you've got 4 or 5 guys that are fighting for that number 5 starting spot, and I think that if any of them won a spot, you wouldn't be surprised or shocked. And so I think the team is just a lot better prepared right now than they have been in the past. So I'd be surprised if he didn't make it through the whole season. Now, whether they bring him back after this year or not, that's a different story. And honestly, I would be surprised if he came back after this season. But if the Reds surprise and go out and win, 85 games, that might change things. But we will see. All right. Jose Lopez is on the mound for the Reds in the Indians game now. Oh, excuse me. I'm going to go blow my nose real quick, so hold on 1 second and I'll be right back. Okay, I am back, guys. Thanks for holding on for a second there, but as I keep saying, you don't want to hear or see any of that, so let's talk a little bit about Jose Lopez, who just struck out the first batter that he faced. I actually got a chance to see him in Pensacola last year, and he struck out 11 of the first 12 batters that he faced in the game. It was incredible. I was talking with a scout at that game, or actually it was after that game, and he was talking about how that Jose Lopez hides his fastball. He's a guy who's going to throw it, anywhere from 91 to 95 miles an hour. Doesn't really top out any higher than that. But he hides the ball so well that it seems like it's much faster than it actually is. He called it the invisible, which I just thought that was really, really funny and creative. But Lopez is one of those guys. The pure raw stuff does not stand out. I mean, again, 91, 95 miles an hour. Everybody throws that these days, but he hides the ball well. There's some deception there. He's a 4-pitch guy, and he throws all 4 pitches for strikes. He's definitely a pitcher, but there's a little bit more to it than just what you see on the raw scouting report. And he struck out the second batter he just faced. Fastball running away up in the zone. So, good start so far for Jose Lopez. 7 pitches, 2 strikeouts. But yeah, he's a guy. I mean, he's on the 40-man roster now. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him in the second half at some point during the season. He's behind some other starting pitchers at this point. He's not pitched in AAA, but so we may not see him until maybe September. But again, when it comes to starting pitchers, if somebody gets hurt, they don't necessarily have the time to rearrange the rotations. So sometimes, if you're on the 40-man, you get called up as a starting pitcher based on your turn in the rotation more than anything else. And so, we could see him before that, but I think that at some point we're going to see him definitely up in Cincinnati. It just might not be until later on in the season. Man, he is looking good so far. We got 9 pitches, 8 strikes. Let's see what he does here in this final at bat. He's ahead 0-2. Fastball up in the zone, so 1-2 on that one. Let's see. Couldn't tell what that was. Could have been a changeup. Could have been a breaking ball. It was a little flat there. So he's at 2-2 on this current batter, but trying to hear what Tom Brenneman is saying about Jose Lopez right now, but I've got the sound pretty far down. Okay, so Clay's got a question here. I'll go ahead and answer that one while we're waiting for Jose Lopez to finish up his inning, unless he finishes it up here, which he did. Looks like an infield fly to third base, and Nick Senzel almost had to get away from him. He was probably 6 or 7 feet in foul territory and had to run back into the infield to actually make the play in fair territory. But he made the play, inning over. Really, really nice inning there for Jose Lopez. All right, so living in Louisville, I go to tons of bats games. Who are a couple guys I should keep an eye out for? I mean, without knowing the roster at this point, I pretty much just say all the starting pitching. Position player-wise, I think you're going to see a lot of the same guys you saw last year. And then, obviously, Nick Senzel. Now, what's going to be interesting to see with Senzel is where he plays. Obviously, watching him hit that's not going to come into play at all as far as where he's playing. But I'm more interested because I think I feel confident that Nick's going to hit. I want to see, one, where he plays, and 2, how he plays there. Or are they going to play him at shortstop more often than not? I don't know. I would like to see it just to see what happens. To give him the opportunity to, get more comfortable with the position and see what happens. But, they may decide in spring training that it's not going to work, and maybe he's got to play some second base, third base, whatever. But that's more what I'm interested in seeing as far as Nick Senzel goes. I don't think there's much of a chance he's going to play anywhere else in terms of levels. There's next to no chance he's going to make the roster out of spring training for the Reds. If for no other reason than service time issues, and I just can't see where they'd send him back to Double-A after what he did last year. So, definitely Nick Senzel offensively, and in the field, and then the starting pitchers. That's who I would keep up with. Who is your favorite baseball announcer and why? I really don't have a good answer for this because I usually don't listen to too many games, even when I'm watching them on TV. Because during the season, when I'm not at a baseball game, I've usually got 3 or 4 games on at once. So I'll only listen to one game at a time, and then I'll also change the audio depending on who I'm watching that particular day. Like if there's a starting pitcher that I'm interested in watching that day, I'll have the audio on while he's pitching. But then when his team's at the plate, I'll usually switch to another game for that audio. So I don't really get a chance to hear a lot of guys that are calling games, and usually the ones that I do, they're all minor league guys anyways. I, as far as like with the Reds go, I always liked what Jim Kelch did, and I know a lot of people didn't like him; they thought he was bland. I personally just like somebody who tells me exactly what's going on and doesn't really give their opinion on what they think is happening or what should be happening, or why they think that some players should have done something different. That's not really my thing. That's not what I'm looking for, especially on TV when I can see it with my own eyes. But yeah, I always liked Vin Scully, but yeah, there aren't very many Vin Scullys out there. If there were, well, Vin Scully wouldn't be Vin Scully, would he? All right. I guess I haven't checked in on the White Sox Reds game in a while, and that box score still hasn't updated. It still has Vance Worley as not throwing a pitch in the game, so I don't know who's in charge over there, but they need to get on it. They need to get on it. Let's see if we've got any updates on Twitter from that game. I'm still scrolling, guys. Hold on. Apparently, Eugenio Suarez homered again. I don't know why my box score isn't being updated, but apparently it did happen, according to Twitter. So that's awesome. It would be great to see Suarez continue to take steps forward that he showed last year. What was interesting is he hit something like 21 home runs at home and only a few on the road last year. And I would like to see that be a little bit more spread evenly. But yeah, if he can take another step forward with his power and keep the strides that he made with his on-base percentage and walks last year, that would be just enormous for the Reds offense. That would give them a legitimate second middle-of-the-order bat to go with Joey Votto. And realistically, I guess it all depends on how much playing time guys like Duvall and Schebler get, but that could give the Reds 4 30 home run guys next year or this year with Joey Votto, Schebler, Duvall, and Suarez if he could add a couple more home runs versus what he had last year. So that would be a great thing for the Reds. It would help them make up a little bit for the lost offense they're going to take from losing Zach Cozart's incredible 2017 season. Maybe I'll try the ESPN box score for the Reds White Sox game. No, it also is not updated, so I have no idea what's going on. Somebody's asleep at the wheel. And Billy Hamilton, did he just get walked or did he get hit by a pitch? All right, it looks like he walked. And they're showing his on-base percentage from each month of the season last year, and it kind of makes you want to cry. You got 265, 339, 267, 333, 275, and then 340. Those sub 300 months are just really bad. You just can't have that. We've got Nick Senzel at the plate right now with Billy on first, and Senzel, I don't know how they're going to mark that down, but it looks like I'd count that as a line drive single into right field, which moved up Hamilton to third, and probably only Billy Hamilton because he beat the throw by about 8 inches or so, and I don't know if anybody else in baseball could have done that. Senzel took second base as the throw got away from the third baseman just a little bit. Clay's pointing out that Ryan Hannigan is in the game for the Indians and that he loved that guy when he was a Red. Definitely one of the more underrated Reds of the past 15 years or so. As a catcher, he was outstanding defensively, and he got on base. There wasn't a lot of power there for him, but he definitely got on base. He provided some offensive value, and defensively he was always among the better catchers in baseball. So good to see him again. We got Tony Cruz at the plate for the Reds now in the Indians-Reds game. And well, I just looked down for a second. Tony Cruz did something. I don't know if it was a single or an error or double or an error. I don't know. But both Senzel and Hamilton scored, and the Reds are ahead now. Okay. 3-run home run for the White Sox. Matt Davidson off Wandy Peralta gives the White Sox an 8-4 lead in the bottom of the 5th. So that one really got away from the Reds there. There's still no update in the box score for that game, but it seems that things are not going well for the Reds. Wandy Peralta took over in the 3rd inning, and he's still pitching in the 5th. I don't know about that. Maybe there's a typo here on Bernie's part. But, yeah, I don't know. That seems like a lot of work for him, so. So it was a double by Tony Cruz that scored both of those runs. Raisel Herrera did not home run so far today. He just popped out to shallow center field, so maybe he won't homer in every game this year. But there's still time. There's still 3 innings left in this game, so. All right. What else do we got, guys? I feel like everybody else is getting updates on their White Sox game but me, and I don't know why. All right, guys. Do we have any other questions or comments? I mean, we've been going for an hour and 45 minutes here, so probably going to come to a close here in the end. But if you've got any more questions, I'll take some more. But if not, then I will close this down. I'll give it another minute or two and let everything catch up to being live. But if there are no other questions, I am going to close this thing down and finish out watching the game and maybe make something to eat for dinner. Okay. Looks like nobody had any other questions, so I'm going to shut this thing down now. Thanks for stopping by, guys. When this goes up again later, if anybody is just looking to watch it again, I'm probably going to pull it down at first and then re-edit it, and then I'll re-upload it later on tonight. So thanks for tuning in, guys. I appreciate it. I thought this went well. It might be something I do in the future. We'll see how it goes, but I think it'd be something interesting to do during the minor league season as I follow along with some minor league games too. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, and I will see you next time. See ya.